I still remember the exact moment my world split open. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon, sunlight slanting across my desk, my coffee going cold beside a spreadsheet I wasn't really reading. My phone buzzed, just once, but the preview alone made my pulse stumble. My best friend texted, "Girl, I have a video you need to see. It's about your husband." For a second, I thought it had to be a joke. My best friend doesn't do melodrama. She's steady, rational, the kind of person who says less, not more, when things get serious. I typed back with fingers that suddenly felt stiff. Send it. Those 7 letters might as well have been a trigger. The clip was grainy, filmed from across a hotel lobby. 38 seconds. That was all it took. My husband walked in, arm in arm, with a woman I recognized instantly. My boss, the regional director. The woman who'd overseen 2 of my promotions, who had given toasts at corporate events, who once hugged me and said she was proud to have me on her team. They were laughing. He leaned into her the way he used to lean into me when we shared jokes in crowded rooms. And she rested her hand on his chest like she owned it, like it belonged there. Then they got into an elevator together. The doors slid shut, silent, final, intimate in a way that didn't require sound to wound. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. Nobody around me would have known that 38 seconds had just demolished 6 years of marriage. I just stared. Replay. Pause. Replay. My breath felt trapped somewhere beneath my ribs. My heartbeat sounded like it was coming from the floor beneath me. There's a strange clarity in moments like that. A coldness. A stillness. Not the dramatic kind of heartbreak people imagine, just a quiet, suffocating realization. He chose her, not me, not us, not the life we'd built or the promises we'd made. My marriage ended in a video message. My loyalty ended with an elevator door. And the consequences? They would start within hours. Because I am not the kind of woman who begs for explanations. I am the kind of woman who acts. The dominoes were already lined up. He just didn't know I was about to push them. Before everything collapsed into a 38-second clip, my marriage looked solid. Ordinary in the way long relationships do when you stop questioning the shape of them. I'm 35 now. We'd been married 6 years, together for 9, no kids, not because we didn't want them, but because life kept giving us reasons to wait, then telling us it still wasn't the right time. Or so I thought. We met in our mid-20s, back when everything still felt adjustable. I was ambitious, organized, quietly driven. He was charming in an easy way, good with people, good at making plans sound like dreams instead of logistics. We grew up together in a sense, shared apartments, shared furniture, shared the kind of inside jokes that only make sense when you've seen someone at their worst and still chosen to stay. Our wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was sincere. Family packed into a modest venue, his parents beaming, my parents crying during the vows. My boss was there too, my regional director, standing near the bar in a navy dress, complimenting the food, congratulating us like she was part of the extended circle. I remember thinking how lucky I was to work somewhere that felt supportive. I didn't know then how blurred lines could become. We settled into marriage the way most couples do. Work during the week, dinner together when schedules allowed, lazy Sundays that started with coffee and ended with takeout. We argued occasionally, nothing explosive. More about distance than betrayal. He said I worked too much. I said he didn't communicate enough. We promised we'd do better. We always promised that. 2 years ago, we started trying for a baby. Or at least I did. Tracking cycles, doctor appointments, quiet disappointment every month that passed without news. He said the right things. It'll happen when it happens. We're not in a rush. Let's not put pressure on it. I told myself that was support, that he was being calm for both of us. Looking back now, I wonder how many nights he already knew he wasn't trying as hard as he claimed. At work, things were accelerating. Long hours, big projects, promotions that came with heavier expectations. My boss became more present in my day-to-day life. Meetings, late emails, praise that felt encouraging, then personal. She knew when I stayed late. She knew when I was tired. She knew when deadlines strained my marriage because I talked about it the way people do, casually, carelessly, assuming professionalism had boundaries. I trusted her. I trusted him. My best friend, the one who sent the video, had been in my life since college. She'd stood beside me at my wedding. I'd stood beside her at hers. She wasn't the type to exaggerate or meddle. If she said something was real, it was real. Which is why, when that message came through, something deep in me understood before my mind could catch up. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was the moment everything I'd believed about my marriage began to rearrange itself into something unrecognizable. And I hadn't even confronted him yet. When I look back now, the signs were there. Not obvious, not cinematic, just small fractures I kept stepping over because marriage teaches you how to normalize discomfort. His phone was always face down. At first, I thought nothing of it. Lots of people do that. Habit, not secrecy. But over time, it became consistent. Screen down at dinner. Screen down on the nightstand. If a notification buzzed, he'd glance at it quickly, then tuck the phone closer to himself, like a reflex he didn't realize he had. I noticed, but I didn't accuse. I told myself trust meant not inventorying every strange behavior. He started having more late meetings. Then, work dinners. Sometimes he'd come home smelling like hotel soap instead of his usual cologne, and I'd blame the gym or a rushed shower at the office. When intimacy between us thinned, he said he was stressed. I said I understood. Marriage has a way of turning excuses into routines. I was working more too, long projects, tighter deadlines, but there was a difference. When I came home exhausted, I still wanted to be with him. When he came home tired, he wanted to be left alone. We stopped checking in the way we used to. Conversations became summaries instead of confessions. How was your day? Busy. Same. We'd sit on the couch together, TV on, but it felt like parallel lives sharing furniture. The baby conversation became delicate. I tried not to sound desperate. I didn't want to pressure him. Every month that passed without news, I told myself bodies were complicated. Timing was unpredictable. Love required patience. What I didn't know was that patience only works when both people are waiting for the same future. There were nights he went out with coworkers and didn't invite me. He said it was easier that way. Work talk, nothing I'd enjoy. I believed him. I wanted to be the supportive wife, not the suspicious one. Once, casually, I mentioned my boss's name over dinner, something about a presentation she'd praised. He stiffened, just for a second, then smiled. She seems intense. That was it. No follow-up, no curiosity. I remember thinking it was strange, but not alarming enough to interrogate. I let it go. Looking back, that's the part that hurts the most. Not that I missed the affair, but that I kept choosing peace over clarity. My best friend later told me she'd sensed something was off months before the video. The way he spoke about work. The way he deflected when she asked how we were doing. She didn't push. She respected boundaries. Everyone did. Because from the outside, we still looked married. Still showed up together at family dinners. Still posted photos on holidays. Still said we when people asked about plans. But the truth was already taking shape behind my back. Hotel rooms. Key cards. Corporate cards being swiped for dinners that weren't business. And while I was tracking ovulation apps and wondering what was wrong with my body, he was building a second life. Quietly, methodically, right under the surface of mine. I didn't know it yet, but the ground had already started to shift. After I watched the video for the 10th time, I finally called my best friend. Where did you get this? My voice sounded calm in my own ears, which felt wrong considering my hands were shaking so badly I had to brace them against the desk. She didn't hesitate. My cousin works the front desk at that hotel. She saw them check in together yesterday. Check in. Together. Same words, different meaning now. She recognized him, I asked. She recognized him because of you. Wedding photos, social media. She called me immediately. There was a pause, then softer. I'm so sorry. I thanked her, hung up, and then I sat there for 5 minutes, maybe more, doing nothing but staring at my phone as the clip played, paused, played again. The way he laughed, the way his body angled toward her instinctively, the ease of it. 6 years of marriage reduced to 38 seconds. Here's the thing about me. I'm not confrontational. I've never been the woman who screams or throws things or demands explanations in the heat of the moment. When something breaks, I step back. I think. I make decisions. And once I make them, I don't waver. That afternoon, I made 3. Decision 1, HR. My company has a strict policy about workplace relationships, especially between supervisors and anyone connected to their direct reports. Conflicts of interest, abuse of power, mandatory disclosure. My boss had been sleeping with my husband. A woman who decided my salary, my promotions, my projects, while sharing a hotel room with the man she knew was married to me. I forwarded the video to our HR director with a brief email. I believe this constitutes a serious conflict of interest and a violation of company conduct. The woman in the video is my direct supervisor. The man is my husband. I am requesting an immediate investigation and a temporary change in reporting structure. No dramatics, just facts. Decision 2, his parents. They're traditional. Church every Sunday. Family dinners every Wednesday. Always polite to me. Never warm. I think they hoped their son would marry someone richer, someone easier to show off. Still, they'd accepted me. I forwarded the video to his mother with one sentence. I thought you should see this before I file for divorce tomorrow. I didn't explain. I didn't soften it. I wasn't asking permission. Decision 3, a lawyer. I called a divorce attorney a coworker had recommended after her own split. Left a message explaining the situation. Asked for an emergency consultation the next morning. Then, because shock does strange things, I went back to work. I finished my project, answered emails, sat in a 3 p.m. meeting where my boss stood at the front of the room, presenting quarterly numbers like nothing in her world was on fire. She smiled at me twice. I smiled back. When I got home at 6:30 p.m., my husband was already there. Normal evening. Pasta on the stove, garlic bread in the oven, the smell of oregano filling the kitchen. Hey, babe, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. How was work? Good, I said. Yours? Busy. I bet. We ate together, watched TV, talked about nothing. He went to bed around 10. I stayed up working. By 11, the consequences had already started. His mother had called him 6 times. His father once. I could see the notifications lighting up his phone on the nightstand. Ignored, because his phone was on silent. HR emailed back. This is being treated as urgent. Please come to my office first thing tomorrow. Do not discuss this with your supervisor. The lawyer confirmed a 7 a.m. meeting. I slept on the couch. When he found me there in the morning and asked why, I said I'd fallen asleep watching TV. At 8, he left for work. At 6:45, I left for mine. The dominoes were already falling. He just didn't know it yet. By the time my phone rang at 12:47 p.m., I'd already lived an entire lifetime since that morning. 7 a.m. The divorce attorney had been direct, almost clinical. In this state, adultery didn't dramatically affect asset division, she said, but it could impact spousal support. The advice was simple and firm. Document everything. Don't move out. Don't hide assets. Don't provoke. She prepared the initial paperwork and told me filing would happen Monday unless I changed my mind. I didn't plan to. At 8:30, I sat across from HR. The director looked uncomfortable in that practiced, professional way people get when they're about to confirm something awful. We reviewed the video, she said, and we pulled hotel records. Plural. This wasn't a one-time incident. There are multiple reservations charged to your supervisor's corporate card. Multiple. Not a mistake, not a lapse, a pattern. They placed my boss on administrative leave pending investigation and reassigned my reporting structure immediately. Before I left, the director asked quietly, "Did you know about this before sending the video?" "No," I said. "My friend's cousin works the hotel front desk. She recognized my husband." "I'm sorry you found out this way." "So am I." By 10 a.m., the first text came in. Him. "My mom keeps calling. Do you know what's going on?" Me. "You should call her back." Him. "Did something happen?" Me. "Just call her." I didn't owe him explanations anymore. By noon, the truth had detonated in his world. At 12:47 p.m., he called me, agitated, defensive, his voice tight and rushed, like someone scrambling to get ahead of consequences he hadn't expected. "You sent that video to my parents?" he demanded. "How could you do that to me?" I felt something go still inside my chest. "How could I?" I asked quietly. "You checked into hotel rooms with my boss. Multiple times. What explanation makes that okay?" "It wasn't what it looked like," he said quickly. "Let me explain." "I'm listening." Silence. Then excuses tripping over each other. "It just happened. I was unhappy. You've been so distant lately." "I've been working 60-hour weeks," I said, my voice sharp now, "for a woman who's been sleeping with my husband." He tried again. "She pursued me. I was vulnerable." "So when you felt neglected, you cheated instead of talking to me?" "I tried to talk to you." "When?" I asked. Silence again. Because he hadn't. "I'm filing Monday," I said. "We're done." He came home early, bursting through the door around 2. I was already there. I'd taken a personal day. He looked frantic, undone, like someone whose carefully hidden life had collapsed all at once. "We need to talk about this," he said. "No," I replied. "We don't. You can't just end 6 years over one mistake. One mistake? I laughed, once, without humor. HR says there were multiple hotel bookings. His face flickered, caught. Those were work dinners, he said weakly. Work dinners that required a hotel room? It wasn't. He stopped. We didn't always stop. I don't want details, I said. I want a divorce. That's when the entitlement surfaced. You can't just walk away, he snapped. We have a life together. The house, our friends, everything we built. You should have thought about that before sleeping with my boss. He blamed stress, loneliness, me, anything but himself. His phone rang, his mother. He answered, and I could hear the screaming through the speaker. His father demanding he come home immediately. His younger sister, always the golden child, had seen the video and was devastated. When he hung up, he turned on me with pure venom. You ruined my relationship with my family. No, I said evenly. You ruined your relationship with your family. I just made sure they knew who they were dealing with. That night, he stayed at a hotel. The irony didn't escape me. Monday morning, I filed for divorce, and the consequences kept coming. Living in the same house while divorcing someone turns every ordinary detail into a weapon. 2 weeks after I filed, he moved back in. Not because he wanted to reconcile, not because he missed me. Because his lawyer told him not to leave the marital residence if he wanted any claim to it. So suddenly, we were coexisting inside the ruins of our marriage. Polite on the surface, hostile underneath. He took the guest room. I stayed in the bedroom. We spoke through attorneys for anything that mattered and through clipped, emotionless exchanges for things like groceries and trash day. It would have been bearable if he'd stopped there. He didn't. The first escalation came disguised as concern. One Tuesday evening, 2 police officers knocked on the door. Apparently, there had been a report of a domestic disturbance at our address. Yelling, sounds of violence. None of it was true. The officers were professional, skeptical in that calm way that told me this wasn't their first divorce call. They walked through the house. No broken items, no raised voices, no signs of anything remotely physical. I explained the divorce. They took notes. They left. As soon as the door closed, I checked my ring footage. Nothing. No shouting, no confrontation, no disturbance. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. She didn't sound surprised. Document it, she said. This could become a pattern. She was right. Next came the narrative war. He started talking to our friends. Carefully, strategically. He didn't deny the affair. Too many people had seen the video, but he reframed it. According to him, I was emotionally distant, controlling, cold. He'd been pushed away and found comfort where he could. Some friends reached out to me, confused. I kept it simple. He cheated, I filed. No embellishment, no counterattacks. Still, I lost people. Friends who believed him, friends who chose neutrality, which is really just another way of picking the louder story. It hurt more than I expected, but it also clarified things. Anyone who could hear hotel rooms with my boss and still hesitate didn't need to stay in my life. Then came the financial move. His lawyer petitioned the court for a temporary restraining order, freezing our joint finances. The claim was that I might drain the accounts and leave him destitute. Projection has a very specific tone when it's typed into legal documents. My lawyer got it modified. Neither of us could make major withdrawals without court approval. Fine by me. I had nothing to hide. During financial discovery, his lawyer requested everything. Bank statements, retirement accounts, assets. Standard procedure. So did mine. That's when we found it. A separate savings account his parents had set up years ago. Nothing illegal about that. But over the last several months, small deposits had been made, $100 here, $200 there, all coming from our joint grocery account. It added up to about $4,000. Not life-changing money, but absolutely marital funds, and absolutely undisclosed. His lawyer argued it was separate property since his parents had established the account. My lawyer calmly traced the deposits. The judge was not amused. He ordered full disclosure of all accounts and issued a warning. Any further hidden assets would directly impact final division. After court, he blamed me for humiliating him. I stared at him across the kitchen island, arms folded. I didn't make you hide money, I said. I didn't make you lie about it. He had no response. Meanwhile, the fallout from work was spreading. My boss, former boss now, was officially terminated. The investigation found she'd used company resources for the affair. Corporate card hotel charges, expense dinners that were actually dates, internal influence that benefited him. She's threatening to sue for wrongful termination. Good luck. She showed up at my office one afternoon, furious, shouting about how I'd destroyed her career. Security removed her. Police were called. A report was filed. My lawyer practically smiled when I told her. Every unhinged action helps your case, she said. Then came the message I hadn't expected. Her husband, soon to be ex-husband, reached out to me through social media. Not to bond, not to vent. Just a short message. I'm sorry this happened to both of us. Turns out she'd done this before. 3 years ago. Another subordinate's spouse. That subordinate had chosen not to report it at the time, and my boss's husband had forgiven her for that affair. This time he wasn't. I sat with that for a long time. This wasn't a lapse in judgment, it was a pattern. And my husband hadn't just fallen into it, he'd chosen it. By then, the house felt less like a home and more like a courtroom waiting room. Every interaction was documented, every silence heavy with strategy. He wasn't trying to fix anything anymore. He was trying to win. And that's when I understood something crucial. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a reckoning. There's a moment in every collapse where the noise finally dies down, and what's left isn't anger or adrenaline or even fear. It's exhaustion. That's where I broke. Not in court, not during arguments, not when the police showed up, or when friends stopped calling. I broke in the quiet spaces between all of it. Living in the same house drained whatever was left of me. Every sound carried weight. His footsteps in the hallway, the guest room door closing, the clink of dishes being put away separately. We were ghosts sharing a mortgage. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying years of conversations with new subtitles layered over them. Every time he'd said busy. Every night he'd turned away from me in bed. Every month I'd blamed my own body for something that had never been mutual. The house smelled wrong without me being able to name why. Familiar, but contaminated. Like everything we'd built had been touched by a lie I hadn't consented to live inside. Work didn't offer relief. Even though my boss was gone, her shadow lingered. Colleagues avoided my eyes or looked at me with too much pity. I hated that look. The one that said, we know and we don't know what to say at the same time. Friends dwindled. Not dramatically, quietly. Group chats went silent. Invitations stopped coming. People didn't want to choose sides, so they chose distance. I told myself I didn't care. I did. The worst nights were the ones without events. No emails from lawyers, no hearings, no confrontations. Just me, alone, sitting on the edge of the bed that used to be ours, wondering how I'd ended up negotiating access to my own life. I cried then, not loudly, not in a way that felt relieving. Just silent tears that soaked into pillowcases and disappeared by morning, leaving no evidence except the heaviness in my chest. One night I opened the fridge and realized I hadn't eaten a full meal in 2 days. Food tasted like cardboard. Time felt distorted. I'd catch myself standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing, forgetting why I'd walked there in the first place. That scared me more than the divorce. Because anger at least means you're still connected to yourself. This felt like fading. I questioned everything. Was I really as distant as he said? Had I missed chances to fix this? Was I too focused on work? Too serious? Too unavailable? The logical part of me knew the answers. Cheating is a choice. Lying is a choice. Building a pattern over months is not an accident. But logic doesn't quiet the part of you that wonders if loving differently might have saved something that was already rotten. One afternoon, I sat in my car after a grocery run and couldn't bring myself to go inside. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel and let my breath shake, slow and uneven. 6 years, gone. The future I'd been planning, gone. And the cruelest part? I still missed the man I thought I was married to. Not him, not who he actually was, but the version I'd built my life around. That grief didn't come with rage. It came with a dull ache, constant and persistent, like a bruise you keep pressing without meaning to. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the part where people lose themselves. And for the first time since the video, I was afraid. Not of him, not of the legal process, not of the fallout. I was afraid that when this was over, I wouldn't recognize who I was anymore. That everything I'd believed about love, loyalty, and partnership had been naive. That trusting someone fully was a mistake I'd never be able to undo. That night, lying awake again, I finally admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. I wasn't just grieving a marriage. I was grieving the version of myself who believed she was safe. The shift didn't arrive with a confrontation or a dramatic reveal. It arrived through structure. Paperwork, timelines, numbers aligned beside dates that no longer allowed excuses to hide. Financial discovery stripped everything down to what could be proven. And once that process started, the story my husband had been telling about confusion, loneliness, being pushed away, collapsed under its own weight. This wasn't chaos. It was planning. Transfers lined up too neatly. Spending patterns overlapped with absences he'd never explained. Small decisions, repeated often enough to look intentional instead of accidental. When my lawyer laid it all out, there was no anger in her voice, just certainty. Patterns matter, she said, and the pattern here is very clear. At the same time, the workplace investigation closed. HR confirmed that the affair hadn't just violated policy, it had interfered with my career. Delayed approvals, quietly redirected opportunities. Decisions framed as timing issues that suddenly made sense once the personal overlap was exposed. It wasn't subtle in hindsight. It was protected. My former boss didn't leave quietly. She tried to force a confrontation at my office, furious and loud, demanding explanations she wasn't entitled to. Security removed her. Police documented the incident. Witness statements were filed. Every attempt to regain control only created more evidence of instability. And for the first time since all of this began, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. I stopped replaying old arguments, stopped interrogating my memory for moments I could have handled differently. I stopped wondering if loving harder or being softer would have changed anything. Because the truth was no longer emotional, it was structural. This wasn't a marriage that broke because of neglect or misunderstanding. It was a system of choices that required my silence to function. And silence, I realized, is not neutrality. It's permission. Forgiveness without accountability doesn't end harm. It preserves it. The absence of consequences in the past hadn't taught restraint. It had taught confidence. That understanding landed heavily, but it was also grounding. It pulled the story out of the realm of what if and anchored it firmly in what is. I didn't cause this. I didn't overlook something obvious. I didn't fail to love him correctly. He chose a life that depended on deception, and I chose not to protect it. From that point forward, everything became deliberate. I followed my lawyer's advice precisely. No emotional texts, no explanations to people who had already decided what they wanted to believe, no confrontations that offered him an audience. Just documentation. Boundaries. Forward motion. I wasn't trying to punish him. I was trying to end it cleanly. The power didn't come from winning arguments or watching consequences unfold. It came from clarity, the kind that removes self-doubt and replaces it with direction. This was no longer about what I'd lost. It was about what I was reclaiming. And for the first time since that 38-second video detonated my marriage, I felt steady again, not because the pain was gone, but because it finally had an endpoint. 6 weeks after I filed, the divorce was finalized. It took longer than it should have, not because the facts were complicated, but because he fought everything. Every clause, every number, every decision that reminded him this wasn't a negotiation anymore. By the end, I was exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. The house was the first thing to go. Neither of us could afford to buy the other out, and neither of us wanted to live there anyway. The place had become a container for arguments, silence, and paperwork. After the mortgage was paid off, we split the equity roughly down the middle. I walked away with about $87,000. People hear that number and think, win. All I felt was tired. Then came retirement. 20 years of saving, disciplined, automatic, invisible, split cleanly in half. About $120,000 transferred out of my account and into his. Seeing it on paper hurt more than I expected. Not because the money defined me, but because it represented years of planning for a future that had never actually been mutual. Spousal support was next. His lawyer pushed for 5 years at $2,200 a month. Mine argued he was capable of full-time work and had been voluntarily underemployed. The judge split the difference. 3 years, $1,400 a month. Still a burn, but survivable. The division of personal property was almost disappointingly mundane. We split things without theatrics, without shouting, without turning receipts into weapons. I kept my car, my jewelry, and the furniture that had always felt like mine. He kept his car, his tools, his electronics. Any argument over who paid for what would have cost more in legal fees than it was worth. Then there was the dog. We'd gotten him together 5 years earlier. Long walks, vet appointments, shared routines. He argued he was the primary caretaker because he'd worked part-time and fed him more often. The judge agreed. The ruling was brief. Final. I nodded, signed, walked out. And then I sat in my car and cried. Not quietly, not gracefully. It hit all at once, my chest tight, hands shaking against the steering wheel. That dog had loved me without conditions. He hadn't known about lies or hotel rooms or corporate cards. Losing him felt like losing the last innocent thing we'd built together. That was the only time I cried like that. Afterward, the consequences kept unfolding, just not around me anymore. His parents stopped speaking to him for weeks. His mother called me once, awkward and apologetic, asking how I was holding up. It was strange, hearing concern from someone who'd never quite warmed to me before. They were good people who'd raised a son who made bad choices. Friends drifted, some quietly, some decisively. People who'd believed his version or decided neutrality was easier than truth disappeared from my life. It hurt, but it also clarified things. I stopped chasing explanations. At work, things improved in ways I hadn't expected. My new supervisor was straightforward. No tension, no subtext. The promotion I'd been waiting on finally came through. Apparently, the investigation had revealed my former boss had been blocking me to keep things stable during her affair. The raise almost covered the spousal support payments. Almost. As for her, my former boss, she became radioactive. Word travels fast in our industry. Companies don't like executives who sleep with subordinates' spouses and expense the affairs. Last I heard, she'd taken a job at a much smaller company for significantly less money. Her marriage didn't survive it. Her husband took nearly everything. Good for him. I moved into a smaller apartment. Fewer rooms. Fewer memories. It wasn't impressive, but it was mine. No echoes of lies in the walls. No shared history baked into the floors. Dating wasn't even a consideration. My therapist said I needed time to rebuild trust, both in others and in myself. She was right. I wasn't lonely. I was healing. One night, my best friend came over with takeout. We sat on the floor, eating straight from the containers, talking about nothing important, normal things. The kind of evening I'd forgotten was possible. A few days after everything was finalized, he texted me. The first direct message since the divorce ended. I know you probably hate me. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. Some bridges, once burned, don't need rebuilding. People asked if I regretted sending the video to HR and his parents instead of confronting him privately. No, not for a second. He had months to tell the truth. He chose lies. I didn't ruin his life. I stopped protecting it. That wasn't revenge. That was reality. And when the dust settled, when the numbers stopped moving and the signatures dried, one thing became clear. I didn't win. I got free. Freedom didn't arrive all at once. It came quietly, in ordinary moments that used to feel impossible. Waking up in my own apartment and realizing no one else's silence dictated the tone of my day. Making decisions without checking how they'd be received. Sitting with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it for someone else. The anger faded first. It burned hot, then cooled, leaving behind something heavier but more honest. Sadness. Not just for the marriage, but for the version of myself who believed loyalty would always be returned in kind. For the years I spent negotiating around someone else's secrets without knowing they existed. For the future I'd planned with certainty that turned out to be conditional. But relief came too, because the relationship hadn't ended when the video surfaced. It had ended long before that, when honesty stopped being mutual and silence became a tool. I didn't walk away unscathed. I lost money. I lost a home. I lost a dog I loved more than I can explain. What I didn't lose was myself. That matters more than I understood at the beginning. People still ask if I would do anything differently, if I regret how I handled it, if I should have confronted him privately, if involving HR and his family was too harsh. I don't. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're clarity. He had time to tell the truth. He chose not to. I didn't expose him out of spite. I stopped covering for choices that were never mine to carry. I learned something important through all of this. Loyalty without honesty is not love. Forgiveness without accountability is not healing. And silence when it protects harm is not kindness. I'm not dating yet, maybe not for a while. Trust doesn't regenerate on command, but it does return, slowly, when you stop betraying yourself for the comfort of others. Some nights are still quiet. Some memories still ache. But they no longer define me. What defines me now is this. I listened when the truth finally spoke. I chose myself without needing permission. And I walked away, not victorious, not untouched, but intact. To anyone listening who's standing at the edge of a truth they're afraid to face, clarity hurts, but it frees. And freedom, once you have it, is worth everything it costs. If you've been through something similar, thank you for sharing your story. You're not alone. And if this resonated with you, feel free to comment, share, and subscribe. This isn't the end of my story. It's the beginning of one I finally get to live honestly.